All right, let's get started. So hello everyone. It's great to see so many of you joining from so many different parts of the world. Welcome to the latest webinar from BrowserStack. Today, I'm very happy to have Kavitha Appakayala from eBay. She's going to be talking about shift and testing and continuous delivery. Before we get started, just wanted to run through a few quick housekeeping pointers. So today's webinar will be running for 60 minutes. It is being recorded and will be shared with all of you in a few days post the webinar finishing. All of you will be on mute so that we can sort of present and speak without any interruptions. And please do submit your questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A button in the Zoom interface. We will save 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to address as many of your questions as possible. Great. So with that, let me just do a quick introduction of BrowserStack, and then I will hand it over to Kavitha. So we are 10 years old. We officially turned 10 years old this year, and it's been a great journey from launch 2011 to getting our first 1,000 customers in about 6 months after that. And through the years, we've launched real devices on Android, iOS. We launched app testing products a few years ago. We expanded our data center footprint. We now have 15 data centers in 12 different cities around the world. Last year, we acquired Percy, and earlier this year, we raised our Series B round at a $4 billion valuation. And yeah, we've got 4 offices in Dublin, New York, San Francisco, and Mumbai. And we've grown to 800 plus employees. We've got customers from sort of the leading customers across all the different verticals. Leading brands from all the different verticals, whether it's finance, technology, media, education, fashion. We also support a huge range of open source projects who can use BrowserStack to test their projects for free. Some of the big names here are like projects like Discourse, Mozilla, Angular, all use BrowserStack to actually test their code. We've got 4 million plus registered users, 72 plus billion commands, Selenium commands that run on our platform every year, customers from over 135 countries, and like I said earlier, 15 globally distributed data centers. Some of the world's largest cloud providers also use BrowserStack to test their software. Let me talk quickly about our products. So we've categorized our products into three main categories. So we've got web testing, and in web testing, Live, which was the first product that we launched with. Literally 10 years ago, Ritesh and Nakul, our co-founders, launched Live in order to be able to solve a problem that they were having, which was being able to test their website on Internet Explorer. And that was the start of BrowserStack. And Live allows you to do interactive cross-browser testing on real browsers and devices. So we have over 2,500 or 3,000 combinations now of mobile devices available on our platform, and you can test your web applications on Live interactively. Automate is our Selenium grid on the cloud, again based on the same platform, so you get access to the same set of browsers and devices across desktop and mobile. And you can run Selenium tests at scale. We have customers running hundreds of parallels every day on our platform, trying to hit their build time goals of shipping and testing every build in 15 to 30 minutes. Our latest addition here has been Percy, which allows you to do visual testing and review. So in addition to testing and understanding if your website is functioning correctly, Percy helps you test whether your website is actually looking correct, right? So does it match the baseline that you came up with when you built sort of the design for the website, right? So the way it's rendering on the website, is it on the browser, is it matching the way you want it to look? So it allows you to visually test your website. On the mobile app side, we have 2 products, App Live and App Automate. So App Live allows you to again do interactive testing of your native mobile apps native and hybrid mobile apps, both on real iOS and Android devices. And with App Automate, you can run your automated app tests. We support a variety of frameworks here, from Appium, UI, Earl Grey, and Espresso. Again, automated app tests on real mobile and iOS, Android devices. And lastly, we have a set of free tools, Responsive and SpeedLab, that are completely free to use. So feel free to hop on at any point if you want to give that a whirl. Excuse me, before I hand it over to Kavitha, I just wanted to make one more announcement. We are giving out what we call a BrowserStack pack, which gives you free access to all of our products. So you can, the team will be putting a link up on the chat for you guys to click on and redeem. So it's literally it's free. There's no credit card information, nothing required. Just sign up, and you get free access to try out all our products. So make sure you do that. Awesome, cool. So let me now hand it over to and introduce Kavitha quickly. So Kavitha is the Senior Engineering Manager of Quality Engineering. She's been with eBay for the last 14 years and worked in a variety of roles, from product developer to DevOps to quality engineering. So she's built sort of a great breadth of experience in different functions in engineering. And yeah, she's got a proven track record of building high performance teams, building and leading high performance teams. And I'd love to hear what she has to say about shifting left and continuous testing, so continuous delivery. So over to you, Kavitha.
Thank you, Praveen. Welcome everyone to the. Just before I get started, let me share a little bit about myself.
Sorry, Kavitha, one last thing. I forgot to make one announcement, my bad. We are also doing a qualification, another poll. So when you guys do get a chance, please do answer that. It'll help us with some feedback on the kind of topics that you're interested in hearing more about. So please take 10 seconds to fill that out. Thank you. Sorry, Kavitha, over to you.
Sure. No worries. First of all, thank you so much for everyone. It's so exciting to see all of you joining from different parts of the world. I'm Kavitha Appakayala. I live in Bay Area, California. You could figure it out from my background. I have 20 plus years of software industry experience. At eBay, as Praveen has mentioned, I got an opportunity to work in different areas, and I was wearing different hats as a product developer, as a DevOps person, part of the SRE team, understanding how the applications that we develop are impacting our end customers. And then I navigated through into the management path, where I led the critical applications like search. And at this point, I'm managing the item and transactions team at eBay. Please bear with me. I'm just getting out of my flu, so you might hear my voice little going weird. I have 40 plus team members spread across different locations, working in different time zones. I have a small family and I have 2 daughters. One is a sophomore in UC San Diego pursuing her bioengineering, and my younger one is an 8th grader. On my personal free time, I love to spend time with family and friends, love to music and gardening. So today I'm going to talk about our journey at eBay as our how we had made an engineering shift to deliver features faster. What I'm going to talk about today is why I need why and what got shifted, and as testing is something that was an afterthought, but it is not anymore. This is something that is needed from the initial inception of the project development. And also I'll be going to talk about the best practices that we are following and the challenges that we faced in our journey. Before I jump onto the details, I would like you to take a quick glance at the scale of eBay, what eBay is about, and looking at some numbers, because we are all humans and we correlate to the numbers. So eBay is one of the top 5 online marketplaces worldwide, which enables buyers and sellers to buy and sell products. We have about 159 million active buyers worldwide, um, and about 19 million sellers um, sell items on eBay. And of them, majority of them have eBay as their primary or secondary source of income. We also support 190 countries across, and more than half of our revenue is from outside the US. So looking at this, you can see that how critical is our application for it to be up and running all the time. eBay is one of those companies that got started in 1990s, and we have a history, and with the history, we also have a lot of legacy code, and it is really a challenging thing to scale our applications to deliver faster. So if we were able to make this change, I'm sure any one of you can make this change in your organizations. How many of you have seen this signboard? This is something that is acceptable when we are in a physical store, but it is not an option for online. We cannot afford to be offline. Based on the article from CMS Wire, the customers have very little attention span. It is less than 15 seconds. And the customer expectations online has been growing day by day, and the tolerance levels are reducing. It is very low to tolerate any kind of these offline issues. They just move on to another site and we will be losing the customers. As I was saying, the customer expectations are continuing to grow, and there is a lot of competition across. And also the customers
Hey Kavitha, sorry to interrupt. Quick request. If you could maybe speak a little closer into your mic. I think some people are struggling to hear you clearly.
How about now? Can you hear?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So there is a lot of competition across, and customers expect seamless experience across different devices. At the same time, we all do that. We browse something on a laptop and then go back to a cell phone and then to a tablet and then come back. So we need these seamless experiences going everywhere. One of the things that we need to understand is there is a disruption that is happening in the technology, and all of us need to be prepared and be able to deliver to our customers. The only way that we can win in this business is to delight our customers. It is to delight our customers by making sure that we have a high reliable and a reliable website with delivering features at a faster pace. Today, I'm going to focus more on the shift that we made from the technology front, how we to deliver faster to our customers. Before I dive in, Praveen, let's get a sense of like what our audience are thinking about and where they are in their journey.
Yep, let's do that. Great. So I think you'll see a couple of questions pop up in polls, folks. I think it'll really help Kavitha with the rest of her presentation and give them input so she can tailor her talk to whatever extent possible based on the inputs that you guys give. So thank you. You just take 2 seconds to answer those questions. So I think the 2 questions are, one is how often do you release code? Monthly, bi-weekly, daily, a few times a day. And the second question is, what is the biggest impediment in your release cycle? Where we have options around improving lead time to change, automation, maintenance, and improving CI pipelines.
Thanks, Praveen, for voicing out on the questions. So this will really help me to understand where you are and what is that information that you are looking forward for, so that I can talk about those. Similar to many companies, we started with a vision to increase our velocity, ability to release our code every day, and changes with the scale of how eBay is operating. That is not an easy task. There are a lot of legacy applications, and we felt when we had this goal in front of us, this is really an unrealistic goal, and we will not be able to achieve this. But are we done with the polling?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
So
share the results, please.
Yeah. So the responses are. Can you see it?
Yes, yep. I see a lot of folks. I see a lot of folks. 53% are in a bi-weekly cadence, and I see almost equal balance between all the three: improving the lead time to change, automation maintenance, and improving CI pipelines. And also, I see there are about 8% of the folks where they have few times a day. That's really awesome. Again, here I'm going to share our journey, how we made this unrealistic goal to where we are today. And this is a journey that we are continuing in this process. So when we had this goal, the first thing that we came up with is like, let's take small steps and let's pick a couple of applications that are really impacting. At the same time, we make sure that we are not compromising on the user, the customer availability, because that's the biggest thing. Even if we cause any issue, there are checks and balances for us to revert it back. So with those clear thought process, we came up with a vision. We came up with a vision of like high quality, reliable, stable, scalable and robust applications with least lead time to change to delight our customers every day. Again, this is really a big vision statement for eBay to scale. And one change does not help in making move all the things together for this moving towards the lead time to change. There were quite a few changes that we made in the software lifecycle to march forward in our journey to where we are today. So today I'm going to talk about the three main things that we focused on, and going into deep dive into each of these on what changes we have done, what was it before, and how what changes we made to where we are today. Before I deep dive into each of this, let me share you some details about the team, about my team. We have about 15 plus Scrum teams across different geographic locations like Toronto, the Pacific time, India time, and also some from Israel and different other locations. With that note, making these changes across was being really a challenging one. And all these different team members work on the same code base at any given point of time. With that, let's get started into the branching strategy. What was it and where we are today? So when we started, before we started our journey, we used to have multiple long-lived branches with a master, develop, and multiple feature branches at any given point of time. With that magnitude, we used to have multiple we used to doing a rollout at any given point of time was a challenging thing. For example, during a rollout, if we see an issue, because of some change made by a person in some other place, for example, in Europe, where it is nighttime for that person, it is really difficult to figure out what that issue is, how it is impacting the users, and losing that context. Having that context of each and every check-in was a big deal. So we moved from that to a single trunk-based development where we have short-lived branches, and all the new features that we develop are behind the feature flags. At any given point of time, all the check-ins that happen to this trunk are ready for deployment to production. So anytime there are no regression issues, and we will be able to roll out faster. We also leveraged the Git hooks to write an application to alert the team. This is mainly used as a feedback loop if there are any stale branches, or if there are any PRs that are long-lived. This is the way how we are making progress in making sure that we are having these small PRs checked in, and there is no too much time spent by the code reviewers also when the PRs were supposed to check in. Now that we looked at the branching strategy, let's hop on and deep dive into the changes that we had made in our approaches to the automation. So it's just not one thing that we have done in automation. It has different folds to it. So one of the first things that the team has done, again, when I am talking about the team, it is both the product development team and the automation engineers, the whole engineering team together had looked into the existing, what is it that before we started this journey, what is it that is an impediment today? What is it that is causing us losing our confidence levels? And what are the things that we need to spend time on, or like what is the shift that we need to make it much more reliable, and we each of us being more confident on releasing this code? First thing that came out of that whole exercise was we used to have this automation and development code in different repos. This was causing an issue for the developers and the automation engineers if they were to understand what exactly got implemented or what are the test cases that are automated. So the first thing that we have done is like shifting all the automation into the same repo as the development code. What that means is for the services, it's not just moving the code, it has quite a lot to it. We were talking the same language what the developers were talking. So for example, on services side, we were using the Java TestNG automation framework. And when it came to the front end for web services, for the web and MWeb, we shifted from the Java framework to the web JavaScript-based WebDriver IO framework. This was one step towards moving closer to the development, and we were following the same folder structure so that like whenever there was a change made, it is very easy for the developer and also for the automation engineer to understand the changes and write the test cases and vice versa. And also just to close on that, even on the native side, we were writing in the same language. For example, for Android, we were using Espresso, and iOS, we were using Exitest. The other thing that we were focusing is duplication. We were writing automation. It's not that the team was not doing automation, everything. We had been doing automation. We had been doing bi-weekly releases, but what gets added in JUnits and what gets added in integration tests was not closely monitored. So there was a lot of duplication between what we were writing automation, but the way how we shifted is how we do an effective automation. So what we had done is the team spends time to come up with the test strategy rather than just coming up with the test plan, not only to discuss about the test cases, use cases, but also to discuss about where which test needs to be written. I will deep dive into that in a minute. And also the team was going with a modular approach. This enabled the team to run automation at a modular level. For example, if there is a new payment method that needs to be showcased to the users as we enable a new payment method, the team doesn't have to run the whole automation suite to ship that change to production. If the team runs the automation related to the payments, we are confident enough to run this, to deploy this into production. Earlier, we didn't have this capability of running it at a modular level. So this was the biggest win. And also given that we had written in the same repo as developer, the developer was getting the feedback faster just with a right click, not getting away from his IDE. Because it is in the same workspace, they can just right click, and even before he raises the PR, he knows if the code is taking care of all the use cases. And then the other biggest problem across the automation engineers is it is not just writing automation, but maintaining the automation is a big task by itself, especially because the integration tests depend a lot on different factors that are outside your own domain. More on the environmental issues, creating the data, or creating, depending on the downstream services and all that. So again, the team had spent, brainstormed, and looked into how we can have this effective automation, and also making sure that whatever investment that we are making is really something that we can rely on with low maintenance and at the same time very reliable. With that context, let me dive into what are the different strategies, the automation strategies that the team had come up with, and how those came in play and helpful in our improving our velocity. So before we started our journey, as I said earlier, we were investing our time in automation and in having a very good coverage from the unit and integration coverage perspective. Our sonar jobs were really showing very good numbers there. But again, this came up with the thing of like, there is a lot of duplication, and the maintenance of these integration tests, as I touched in the previous slide, that was really something that was taking a lot of time for the engineers to maintain all the time. And this was causing even our releases to get delayed because of the failed test cases. So after evaluating and brainstorming, team looked into the existing automation and integration testing that we had, and looked into how we can split the same thing in a way that it is a lot more robust and is of low maintenance. And we do build confidence on what's getting run. So one of the things, as part of that exercise, what the team has come up with is different types of automation. As you all know, unit testing is more of testing at the method or at the logic level, at a small granular level. This benefits us to make sure that the if-else statements or anything that we have written is working as expected. The next thing that the team came up is the component testing. Here, this came handy to make sure that we validate at a component level. Let me take an example here to walk you through what I'm talking about for the next three testing types. I'll go with the same example of like the payment methods because it's easy to understand. If there is a requirement, imagine there is a requirement of like adding a payment method on France side. And this is something that should be shown only to the users who get on to the France side. And when they look at the items saying that there is a new payment method available, this is something that is not to be shown for the other users who are on the other sides. So the way how the component testing works is at the payment method from the services side, for the payment methods that are getting emitted, we ensure that we make sure the component level, it is working as expected. The number of attributes that are coming out of this component are as expected. And also based on the input parameters for in this matter, like if it is like France is the input parameter based on the user country, the component should be providing different outputs compared to the if it is a US user. So this is again like more of the making sure like it is based at the component without looking at the downstream or anything. And the other thing, and from the UI side, again, the component is the correctness of how the payments module on the whole page is showing up. It is not to do with how it is doing with the other modules on the page, but it is just with the component as such. And then the next thing that the team had done a POC and is working on developing is the contract testing. This is mainly to make sure the schema is validated between the producer and consumer. I think a lot of you would have heard about pact testing. This falls into that. Just to give you an idea on that. So this is mainly to make sure that, again, we are not depending on downstream services or upstream clients. And this is mainly to make sure the agreement between when I said the producer and the consumer, it could be the service and the client, or a service with an underneath service. In the example that I was talking about, for the payment methods, if my service is getting these payment methods from different services, the services team are independent to go ahead and work on the feature as long as my contract test is passing, meaning like what I am expecting from the downstream. If those are getting emitted, I'm not worried about what else is being produced by the downstream service. At the same time, from the client side, the client is not doesn't have to worry, and then they can go ahead with their releases as long as the schema is validated between the client and the service. In this example, for example, the services team has worked on implementing the payment method for France. But as per the contract, the client is expecting only 3 attributes at this point of time for France, given that we have not developed for showcasing the France payment method. As long as the contract test is passing with the 3 attributes returning, I don't have to worry about what the services team is emitting. At the same time, when we make the change on the front end, that is the time we go ahead and add this contract where when it is France, we make sure that the fourth payment method is coming. This is where we make use of the, initially we start with the mock JSON responses and then validate it across the actual services. This way, like we are not depending on the integrated environment, and each of these applications are ready to go on their own. And very well, all of you are aware.
Hey, Kavitha, sorry to interrupt, but I think I'm not sure if it's just me, but your slides aren't changing on this presentation.
Yeah, I'm still on the integration testing.
Okay, sure. All right, cool. Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So let me just touch on the integration testing before I move on to the next slide. As you all know about integration testing, it is more of the functional testing to ensure all the components are working together. In the same example, again, if from the front end side, if the user has picked up a payment method, is that payment method being processed to the next screen or not? This is where it works as the integration testing, and that's where this comes handy. It is handshaking between the different components and different page views. With these different strategies and the benefits that we had seen, this made us go with robust automation and making sure that the team is not spending too much time on fixing the automation and automation failures. With that, let me also touch upon a little bit on how the automation inception has shifted from before to after. So before, as you all would have seen, that we have the requirements and specifications phase, and then as a part of the design review, the automation engineers go through the test plan, and then the implementation happens. Based on the implementation, that the automation engineers goes and tests and automates, and then the merge of the code and regression, release, and the beta testing in front of the users happens. But the way how we shifted from there is after the design phase, even before implementing the code, either on the development or on the automation side, as a team, the engineering team goes over the test strategy and reviews the test plan to make sure that we understand which test case is written based on the different strategies that I mentioned earlier. Is this test case something qualifies for a unit test versus a component test or integration test and so on. With this, also the first thing the developer and the automation engineer works on is to provide a mock response and mock component in the front end layer as the first thing, so that both the automation engineer and the product development engineer, both of them can work in parallel. And also this comes really in handy, especially as I told you earlier, in getting into this feedback loop of making sure how the implementation is working by running the automation just by a right click. So before even the PR gets merged, the developer has the confidence that the code is actually working as expected based on the test plan and and also just to talk about all the different test strategies that we have. Those are all complementing each other rather than duplicating the effort. So once the regression is done and the code is merged, it is very well ready to be out there for production without any due. Now that I had talked about the automation approach, strategy, and inception, again, we are all people who need some numbers next to it. how the progress is happening, and as a checkpoint on like, is this really working or not? So let's dive into some quantifiable numbers, what it was before and what are the current numbers in our journey at this point. So just to give I'm touching upon few important things here, but there were quite a lot of other things that had movement in the numbers. So for executing the service test, about 700 tests, we were taking 29 minutes before, but with improvements to the, not just to the improvements to the approach strategies and all, team also had spent time in improving the framework as such. For example, spending time in having the framework level changes for multi-threading, for parallel execution, and also to get away from hard wait times to fold times. And the reporting is another thing where we spend some time to ensure that we have enough information in the reporting for the either a developer or for an automation engineer to look at the failure, to go debug and fix the issue then and there. It also gives the history of like when a failure started. So these were all small things that added to the big shift that we had made. And one other example that I can talk about is creation of the data. For any test execution, the biggest thing that we need is the data creation before we execute. So when we looked into the whole regression suite, the running of the regression suite, we were spending about 8 minutes for creating about 250 test data. And what we have done is we went ahead with a nightly data queue, which really helped in reducing the regression time from 8 minutes to 30 seconds. And also the reliability had gone up, given that this is a nightly job. And if there are any failures, there was time for recreating the items. So those are all the things that went in this data creation process to make it much more robust. And I know that many of us think that writing the service test is much easier and much more stable compared to the front-end testing, especially given the width of things. We need to make sure that we are running on different devices. And also we need to make sure the grid is always running. And we also need to spend time in adding new devices, updating the OS versions. And if there is any combinational issues, that we have a grid available to run all that automation at a click of a button. But this was really a nightmare before we started this journey, because this was like a full-time job for few of our engineers to keep track of all these and to update all this. Again, we were very clear with our vision and how we were making progress, and we didn't want to put our foot into everything. So we were exploring options that are available out in the market, and we try to look for what best suits for us, and we integrated with BrowserStack as a grid, and this not only brought down the maintenance costs to zero, but also helped in increasing the developer productivity. The developers were feeling that they got some time back to work on something really much more beneficial and useful. For example, spending time in tools, or like increasing the automation, or like working on the CI improvements to make the release faster. So with that, let's go on, let's look into what changes we have made to the continuous integration pipelines that we had. As many of you are aware, when we started the journey, again, it's more of whenever a check-in happens, we had this pipeline that kicks in which runs the unit test, builds it and deploys to a stage where the integration tests were run. And then there are, of course, other DODs that we do before we certify the builds to the production. What we have shifted from there is, given we had put effort and time in increasing in our automation and having that much more reliable, we pulled that way early in the development life cycle, even before the merge of the PR. So whenever a PR merge is triggered, the pipeline gets kicked off, the pre-merge pipeline gets kicked off to run the different types of tests. And only when it is green, a build is triggered and deployed to an isolated environment rather than putting it on the stage. It runs the BVT, and one of the things, because of the modular automation approach that we had an ability to do the smart tagging. As I touched upon earlier, if we were to run only the payment test cases, we just run that and then the code review happens. Once the code review is done and checked in, the usual, by this time we are 95% confident that everything is looking good and ready to go for production. But again, to ensure that it is working in the integrated environment, we just kick off this build, and with the improvements that we had made, we also brought down the time it takes for this whole pipeline to run from 1.5 hours to less than half an hour. So before I, just to recap on what we have done, it is just not one thing. There were quite a lot of things that went into for us to shift this, to increase the velocity. We had to make changes in the branching strategy, automation strategy, and also improve CI/CD pipelines. With all these changes, from the bi-weekly releases, we moved into the daily releases. This has been like a big achievement for the team. We have scheduled daily releases at this time. And again, our journey is continuing to see how we can do releases for every PR check-in. So this is something that we had achieved thus far. And of course, this journey is continuing. But just to talk about like these software development lifecycle changes and releases shift, it was just not the technology changes, but there was a huge paradigm shift that was needed. There was a big mindset change that had played a big role in this whole process. I could proudly say that it is because of this big change that the whole team worked together. We are here able to do the daily releases. I touched upon more of like effective collaboration from the design phase and also the parallel development and automation, how we started doing it. I will be touching a little more into the mindset change at this time. We all know change is not easy. It takes almost a village to make the change. So this was not been possible if we would not have worked together, whole org, I would say. It's just not the quality engineers. It's just not the developers. It is to do even with the product managers to that matter, and also the leadership to that matter. So every one of us had to make shift, had to understand that the change is not going to be easy. And we all needed to, like, one of the biggest things that we had to change is making sure that each of the team member at every level of the team understand why the vision is important, and um, making sure that it is a team vision rather than a vision at org level or at company level. And it's more of a not a top down but bottom up approach that we had taken. And the one of the biggest things that came our way is we are all humans, and it is natural for all of us to be uncomfortable, to take risks. This what if is something that bothers us the most. Oh, what if we release just by running the payment methods? What if something is not working? What if kind of thing, right? So one of the biggest things that helped us, like for example, one of our engineers was like, when we shared this vision saying that, oh, we need to make sure that by the end of the year, we need to move into these daily releases, the first thing that we heard is like, oh, we cannot do that. But when we sat down and started looking into so the approach that we took is like, that's totally fine. Let's look into what is it that are the impediments today. If we were to reach that goal, keeping apart all the different things that we have at this current state of the application. So when the team started to put those things and the moment they started to put those on the paper, it was evident saying that, oh, it is not we can't do, it is more of we are not there yet, but these are the things which will take us there. That is the first step towards this whole mindset change. And once that was done, it was a lot more easy. So the shift that all of us had to make is the growth mindset. It is from the leadership level, from the leads level, from the individuals level. For example, there is a lot of opportunity for us to march forward with this at an org level where we have the increased velocity and we can ship features faster to the end customers. As a company, we will gain out of it. But as an individual contributor, what is it that I'm gaining out of this process? When we made these when we made these changes of shifting the whole automation to the new repo, there was an opportunity evident there where we invested time in our engineers to learn a different language and also to execute on it. And this is where, as leads and as coaches, they played, including me, we played a bigger role of like saying that, also we learned a lot in this process saying that, okay, all this will happen. We need to have patience. It is not going to happen like at the click of a button. So we had to spend a lot of time, and thanks to all our engineers where they spent the time making each of the team members understand what is the opportunity that is in front of them, and also reasserting with the team saying that failures happen, mistakes happen. It is not that we were all perfect when we started rolling out the code from bi-weekly to weekly or twice a week before we made it to the daily releases. There were mistakes, there were like hot fixes we had to do, but it is more of like how we learn from those mistakes. There is nothing called a blaming game here. How we create that safe environment for the team to take those calculated risks, and people being open and honest to provide feedback and provide their valuable inputs, and how we really strengthen our muscles. This reminds me of a person. working his way to train himself for a marathon. It just doesn't happen the first day he goes and participates in the marathon. There is a long journey behind accomplishing a marathon. He needs to work on his muscles. He needs to train his body. He needs to make sure each and every, he needs to put small steps before he goes to that full marathon and does that. That is how we started this journey. And thanks for listening to our story here. And if I were to touch on just 2 takeaways from this whole presentation, testing was something considered as a bottleneck before, but this is an enabler for the customer experience. If we were to release features faster, testing is something that needs to be part of each and every part of the journey from the beginning to the end. Thank you all for your time, for listening to this. And
awesome, thanks. Thanks, Kavitha. I'm just going to keep my video off. I have my screen. Great, I think we don't have a whole lot of time left. So quickly, folks, you'll have a poll coming up on your screen. Just reach to us if you need any help or somebody to get in touch with you to get started with BrowserStack. So please do fill out that poll. That should be showing up on your screen shortly. Okay, Kavitha, we have a lot of questions. So let's see how we only have 4 minutes. All right, awesome. So I'm just gonna sort of. So the first one is around, you talked about how you've moved to a daily check-in, a daily sort of shipping daily, right? Shipping releases every day. How do you manage to do this, given that you might have bugs that you discover, especially if you're testing after every PR? I'm sure you will find bugs. So how do you squeeze all of that, fixing of the bugs and still releasing on that same day?
Yeah, so again, like this is more of a learning process for all of us. And again, the bugs going out to production when we are in this phase is something that is bound to happen. But what we learn from it and how we process it, and first is the customers are the more important people that we need to take care of. How we make sure that we are able to revert the changes and get the experience that the user needs to have, and then fix the issues and learn from it was the approach that we had taken. So we were ready to take the risk of like rolling back or based on what it is. Even there are days when we do the hot fixes, sometimes when we have these bugs. But again, that is more important to take that as a feedback loop and put back the automation or any other things that were missing and how we can avoid this in the future.
Cool. The next question, Kavitha, is around, you talked about building automation in parallel, right, as the code was also being developed. I think specific to UI automation, and I've seen this question before, is if the UI is changing, let's say, and a bunch of things in your like your class IDs and your sort of class.
Yeah. So here,
I think which is so dynamic.
Yes, I totally get it. This is the common thing that happens in the front end side. And that is where I was talking about the collaboration and that mock UI coming into the picture. It is a combined effort of the PD and the automation engineers to work closely. And one of the reasons why we have this code in the same language, in the same repo, is not just anyone can automate. It's just not the automation engineers. It's just not the automation engineers having the responsibility of making sure we are of high quality, right? It is a collaborative effort. So this opens up the opportunity for the teams to work together. And especially when there is a requirement change, the first thing to fix is go and fix the automation, make sure the agreement between the development and automation is intact before we hop on to the actual development.
Got it. Okay. And Kavitha, you have a little bit of time. We can go over maybe 5 minutes.
Yes.
And try to get some more questions, and great. Thank you. So, all right. So let's keep going. Mike has a question around microservices. Given, I think, the microservice environment that you have at eBay, how do you handle like versioning and combinations, different combinations of services when you're testing?
Yeah, sure. So, again, like we are in our org, we are not there yet at the microservices architecture, but the way how we have architected our automation code is like as we are moving out of these legacy applications where it was like one monolithic to more of breaking it down into specific components and then moving our journey into the microservices. We wrote our automation code in such a way that it can be easily moved out, and we can spawn a microservice without with a very minimum effort from the automation engineers to refactor. Does
Got
that
it.
answer your question? Cool, thanks.
Got it. Okay. So where exactly does regression testing fall into your pipeline that you had walked us through?
So yeah, so here is the thing, right? Because we have shifted things to the left of the whole life cycle, I would say that regression is not one place where it is an afterthought that happens after all the check-ins happen. So I would put it into different buckets as like more of like, again, BVT is more of a regression of like P0s and P1s, right? So based on what are the changes that are going in, being smart enough to run only the modular testing and making sure that it is all working fine is the biggest shift that I would think. Yes, we run our regression testing before we push the things to the production. But by then already we have run it enough number of times that there should not be anything that is a big surprise there.
Good. Okay, another question around parallelization. As you sort of parallelize tests, how do you avoid sort of the situation where you need either preconditions like tests or the application to be in a certain state for other tests to run, right? So how do you sort of organize your test suite and parallelize in the right way?
Could you repeat that question, Praveen?
Sure, no problem. So when you're parallelizing your test cases, in many cases, like a test needs the application to be in a particular state before it can execute. So I guess the question is like, how do you determine like what is the strategy to parallelize and make sure that these situations don't occur where a test is running, but the app is not in the right state, right?
So in this journey again, like the goal that we want to go is more of like test-driven development, where like the automation engineers write the code even before the developers write the code, right? So yes, the thing is like initially it will be failing when they run it, but based on the specs and how we have come up with these mock UIs and the mock service responses, the automation engineer is ready to go ahead and write the test, not just at the unit. I mean, like this enables the automation engineer to write and also enables the developer to ensure that they are running these tests, and he is the team is responsible to check in this code only when all these things go in a green state. So yes, it is bound to fail, and that is where we want to be.
Got it. Got it. Okay, couple of questions, Kavitha, around the, you talked about in one of your slides, you talked about the time, how you results you achieved in reducing data creation time.
Yes.
How did you accomplish that? Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, again, this is whole, as I said, the change is not just from one person or two. It is a team effort, and the way how the team have achieved this is, so this was something that was an issue across different teams at eBay. And of course, this is a common problem across. So we had invested our time into looking into how we can have the data available for all the different use cases, and we have created this application where it just not creates, but also it pulls in the data, very little data of what are the different combinations that are there in production, and what are the different types that we need to create in the staging environment. And also the way how they have done that is with the ML model, the team went ahead and created tags around it with an API wrapped around. So that enabled all the teams across to just call that service to get the different item combinations or like different data combinations that we needed for our testing purposes.
Got it.
And of course there are gaps, and those gaps are something like we request whenever there is some new requirement. We work together as a team to get those created, and once we have the data, it is just calling the information. And one of the things that I can call out is few of the engineers, when we start the feature, they also look into what kind of data is needed, and that is the right time where like the automation engineer ensures that the data is available in for the automation. If not, works with folks to get that available for both automation engineer and the product developer to work on to be able to leverage.
Got it. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Kavitha. Thanks a lot for your time. It was great to see the journey, of you and the team from where you were at eBay to where, sort of how the successes that you've been able to do at accomplish at eBay testing. So
thank you.
Really interesting presentation. So thank you for taking the time to walk us through that.
Thank you all. This
awesome.
Was
and
really
thank you for joining.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Yeah. And before you leave, folks, once you exit the webinar, you will see a quick NPS question. So just let us know how your feedback about the webinar. Would love to hear from you guys, you folks, on what you think. And I think there are a lot of questions that were unanswered. So we'll try to get some of these answered offline and potentially do a blog post maybe in a week or two. So thank you all, and thanks again, Kavitha, for a great presentation, great webinar.
Yeah, thank you all for few of you. I know it is late in the day. Thank you so much for listening to our journey, and thank you so much for this great opportunity to share what we have done at eBay to BrowserStack. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Kavitha, and thanks everyone. Have a great day.